Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys, today's date, March 24th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week so far, because it's the middle of the week, and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, guys, this is a family-friendly podcast. We at least try to be family-friendly. Sometimes choice words will fly, and then, we try to do our best, but sometimes we may show things of a graphic nature, so viewer discretion is advised. And also, we are kind of live. Like I said, we're still running the social experiment about running live on Instagram as well as Facebook, and trying to do Twitter. Let's see how that one goes. But that being said, welcome. So, like I said, not a lot to get into from this week so far, guys. So, we're just going to start with the first one with the most recent news, unfortunately, about another shooting in a very familiar place, unfortunately, in Boulder, Colorado.
Morning, as law enforcement continues to work the crime scene, those chilling new details. According to the Boulder Police Department's arrest affidavit, the alleged shooter methodically marched through the store and parking lot where witnesses say he shot an elderly man and then stood over him and shot him multiple additional times. His 10 victims were gunned down both inside and outside the King Soopers Market. Authorities say the alleged shooter, 21-year-old Ahmed Alisa, had purchased the AR-style weapon that sowed so much carnage only a week before, and that during the rampage he wore a green tactical vest.
It looks like we have an active shooter.
Dean Schiller came to shop for groceries, but in an hours-long live stream, he would end up bearing witness.
Someone's down right here. Something just happened here, guys. Look, there's people lying in the street, guys. He went in the store.
Right down there.
Oh my God. Guys, we got people down inside King Soopers. Holy there's a shooter, active shooter, get away!
Alisa, seen here being led away in handcuffs, was arrested following a shootout with police inside the store. Bleeding from a leg wound, he was whisked away in an ambulance. Police say he would not answer questions, but did ask for his mother. As panicked survivors like Sarah Moonshatter ran from the shooter, Officer Eric Talley raced towards him. He was shot in the head and died at the scene. On Tuesday, Boulder's police chief choking back tears.
This wasn't just about your work today, that this was personally very difficult for you.
This officer had 7 children, ages 5 to 18. I just had that officer's whole family in my office 2 weeks ago to give him an award. And so it is personal.
Talley's anguished mother reached by phone.
My son gave his life to save those people at the King Soopers. He gave it all, and the hate still continues. Oh, God.
Talley's police cruiser parked outside the police station and draped in flowers, becoming a makeshift memorial. The police chief reading out the names of all the 10 victims. 25-year-old Ricky Olds was a manager at the supermarket. Her Aunt Lori watched the massacre unfold in real time on that live stream.
We're watching it on my phone as the police are just getting there. And, we're horrified.
20-year-old Denny Stong, the youngest victim, also worked at the store. Friends say 59-year-old Suzanne Fountain loved the theater. The oldest victim, 65-year-old Jody Waters, leaves behind 2 daughters and a grandchild.
You could just feel like the love pouring out of her and coming into you, and you just felt the love.
This as a community mourns and the memorial for the victims grows.
And again, if you're wondering why Boulder, Colorado sounds familiar, unfortunately, it was the unfortunate site of the first high school shooting in a long time. Of course, the Columbine High School shooting, in which many students and teachers were hurt and also killed. In the same city where, again, this alleged shooter decided to go ahead and shoot up this location, and it was kind of reported that this individual did purchase 6 assault weapons before the attack. And I guess I'd be remiss to say that in the midst of him killing these individuals, the police somehow took him in alive. Not to take away from the fact that, it's still a tragedy in any sense of the word, but the police took him in alive. Moving right along, guys, like I said before, this does, again, brings us back to one other thing that's actually been discussed in the U.S. is gun control. There's not a time when there hasn't been a school shooting or a mass shooting or just anything involving a lot of violence that it came back to gun control and how we actually will address it. Now, despite however you feel on both sides of it, of course, with the shooting that did happen again in Boulder, Colorado, did prompt Congress to come forward with another conversation on gun control that, well, let's just be honest, didn't really lead anywhere.
Committee holding its first hearing of several hearings on steps to reduce gun violence in America. The House has already passed a background check bill, and Senate Democrats are vowing to take it up. But they may not have the votes.
We face a pandemic of coronavirus. We have another epidemic in America called guns. We are numb to the numbers. Unless we are personally touched, it's just another statistic. That has got to stop. This committee, this hearing, I hope will open a conversation about constitutional, common sense ways to reduce gun violence in America.
Every time there's a shooting, we play this ridiculous theater where this committee gets together and proposes a bunch of laws that would do nothing to stop these murders. The Democrats propose taking away guns from law-abiding citizens. When you disarm law-abiding citizens, you make them more likely to be victims. If you want to stop these murders, go after the murderers.
CNN's Mani Raju is on Capitol Hill.
Get old, folks. It doesn't get old. And that was Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, of all people, who, by the way, Texas, if you're watching this, I hope you guys do remember come the midterms next year that Ted Cruz needs to just go ahead and be booted. That's just being honest. Because with Ted Cruz, unfortunately, I don't get how or why they keep saying the same thing. Republicans always say these talking points. Gun control doesn't work. You want to take away guns from people. It's a tale as old as time, but apparently it still gets said. Which, again, I'm on the opposite side of it. I say, try it. See what happens. The worst that could happen is that the outcome will still be the same. And then you'll be vindicated. But you're not vindicated if we are not doing anything about gun control. And don't take this from me. I am a gun owner. I still want gun control. I want extended background checks. I want a limit on whatever guns you can hold. Because, let's be honest, I understand that some people love AR and assault style rifles, but there are some people I would really be for not them getting them, especially those that have mental issues or domestic violence issues. I don't want them in the hands of those individuals, such as the person who just purchased 6 weapons and decided to go shoot up a grocery store, such as a person who was 18 years old decided to go up to Kenosha, Washington, and decide to be a dick. Because he went to go protect stores that had nothing to do with him and wound up killing 2 people. Those are the individuals that I don't want them to have guns for. So it amazes me so when we get to this whole thing of gun control, again, Republicans will always sit there and say, you're trying to take guns away from us. And ladies and gentlemen, for all those that don't know this, Republicans have been saying Democrats have been trying to take your guns away since the beginning of the Constitution. I ask this question every time. Has anybody knocked on your door and took your gun yet? I think you're safe. But it amazes me so, again, the rhetoric behind all of it, to where we just don't sit there and say, well, it's just because of this, that. I'm like, no. If you are literally paying attention to what's going on, then at the same time, you understand that there needs to be gun changes. And in the U.S., and I have said this plenty before, especially in Tennessee, it is way too easy in Tennessee to get a gun. It is way too easy. And I've been saying this all the time. You want to get a gun, Tennessee, Tennessee, besides being the easiest state to get a driver's license, it's also the easiest state to get firearms. If you go to a gun trade knife show, as long as you have an ID and money, you have a gun. There are no background checks. Trust me, I have been to a few. They don't do background checks. And person-to-person sales are not done. Person-to-person sales need to be done via an FFL, or Federal Firearms License place, to where proper paperwork and things of that nature can be done. There's nothing wrong with that, but people don't want to do it because, they think that the government's out to get them, as usual. But again, I shouldn't be surprised by that. But that type of rhetoric where they say nothing works is always the Republican two-step. They don't want to push forward new laws. They think that we need to have guns in the hands of the good guy with a gun. Here's the thing. How can you tell which one's a good guy and which one's actually ready to kill people? Because they both same have the access to guns. And we do need new laws and restrictions. That is just the plain truth. Because doing nothing leads to, unfortunately, more shootings to where more shootings and things of that nature can happen. That's the point I'm making. But speaking of things that just sound like white supremacy all over them, this other story that I have here, where before I play this about the charge of sedition, is that prosecutors may move forward about the leaders of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys coordinating their attacks before the U.S. Capitol failed coup d'etat. And now they say that they may charge them with sedition.
Talk to me about what you think this charge requires, what it means for the direction of this massive investigation.
Yeah, Kate, sedition charges absolutely need to be on the table here. Now, people hear this phrase sedition and it feels like a very dramatic charge to bring, right? Overthrowing the government. However, if you look at the law, there's actually simpler ways to charge and prove sedition. First of all, trying to interfere with a governmental function. That's a way to prove sedition. What were those rioters doing in the Capitol that day? They were trying to stop the counting and the certification of the electoral vote. And second, even more simply, seizing or occupying a federal building without permission. We all saw it happen right in front of us. So I think sedition charges absolutely could be applicable here.
The fact that Michael Sherwin left open the possibility that investigators are looking at the role of Donald Trump in this insurrection, the way that he worded it, I think, is really, and talked about it, is quite important, I think. Let me play that.
It's unequivocal that Trump was the magnet that brought the people to D.C. on the 6th. Now the question is he criminally culpable for everything that happened during the siege, during the breach? What I can tell you is this, based upon, again, what we see in the public record and what we see in public statements in court. We have plenty of people, we have soccer moms from Ohio that were arrested saying, well, I did this because my president said I had to take back our house. That moves the needle towards that direction. Maybe the president is culpable for those actions.
So Trump's acquitted in the Senate of this very thing, right? I know obviously very different from a criminal case in a criminal investigation, but what do you think this means now?
Really interesting comments from the prosecutor there. I think he's making quite clear that he believes there may be charges applicable against Donald Trump. Ultimately, that's a decision that's going to have to be made by the new leadership of the Justice Department. Remember, during his confirmation testimony, Merrick Garland said essentially that. He said, we will follow all leads wherever they take us. Any good prosecutor knows you can't just charge the lowest layer players here. You can't just charge the people who physically committed the crime. You have to look beyond who planned it, who incited it. So Merrick Garland's only been in office not quite 2 weeks yet, but that's going to be the first key test for him.
he is completely right that on a number of things actually. Sedition is a lot easier to prove than anything else. I mean, not to recap January 6th all over again, but to recap it. Trump held a rally on the day that they were confirming the electoral college votes. Trump sat there and said that, if you don't, if nothing is done, they're going to take it from you. He incited the mob that actually went down the street to the Capitol and then decided to go ahead and rush it. At the same time, they did, and like you saw from various pictures and things of that nature, that some folks were intending to either hang or even do worse to senators. Keep in mind, a lot of those senators were Republicans that were scrambling. So again, sedition can be proven. In which I said before, now that they found out that the leader among the leaders of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, both are pro-Trump supportive groups, may actually be charged with that. Although terrorist actions are a lot easier to add on to that because they were trying to overthrow a government. Again, sedition should be added, and yes, even though Trump was acquitted of his impeachment, he is still liable to be included as far as an accomplice or conspirator to basically sedition charges. He can still be charged for that, even though now he's a private citizen, and he's too busy ducking the IRS as of right now, since all of his taxes are open season. But moving right along, guys, like I said before, COVID-19 is still out there and real. Trust me, I just had a meeting today. I just had a meeting today about my job about it, and Lord knows I wish I could talk about it. But COVID-19 is out there, and as we announced a few weeks ago, Texas decided to say, well, bump that. We're opening everything back to the way it was. Let's see how Texas is doing.
When the Texas mask mandate was lifted nearly 2 weeks ago, Wayne Lacombe knew what he had to do. So he posted this sign at the front door of Legends Diner in the town of Denton, Texas.
In the interest of full disclosure, it says $50 if I have to explain why masks are mandatory. You haven't charged us the $50. We're just talking, right?
Absolutely. We thought it was pretty humorous, but yet it made a point. We wanted something that let people know that we're serious.
It didn't take long for his restaurant to become the target of angry social media posts with a slew of insults.
Has the number of angry people you're dealing with gone up since the mask mandate was lifted?
Absolutely. It's a tough situation to be in, but we have to stand our ground. I can't think about what is going on out there. I have to manage my business, my employees, keep everybody safe.
I am ending the statewide mask mandate.
When Texas Governor Greg Abbott lifted the mask mandate, many business owners feared it would turn them into the mask police. In League City, the manager of a Jack in the Box was stabbed 3 times after escorting a man out of the restaurant for not wearing a mask. The manager survived, but police are still trying to find the suspect.
What are you going to do, arrest me?
Yes, for intruding on premises.
That's hilarious.
In Galveston, this woman was arrested by police in a bank. She said she came to close her account, but refused to follow the bank's policy of wearing a mask.
Oh, back up. Some old lady is getting handcuffed here.
Mike Wynn's Noodle Tree restaurant in San Antonio was vandalized with racist graffiti after he spoke out against the lifting of the mask mandate.
I was full of rage. I was shocked that something like that would actually happen in San Antonio. That's not a normal thing.
Wynn says the attacks haven't stopped from what he describes as creepy phone messages like this.
So masks mean nothing, and this is the COVID pandemic is a hoax, and you're a fool, and I'll never come to your restaurant again.
To what he now says are far more serious threats.
They said, "Mother, we're coming for you," and then my street address. You could tell the hate in the voice and the anger in it, that, it wasn't something like someone just trying to troll or play around. It was real.
Mike Wynn has hired private security and says he worries that other small business owners are fighting the same fear. Ed Lavendera.
Crazy, isn't it? That it is amazing that Texas, how people go crazy over just mask. Not only mask, but the fact that some restaurants who have the good sense to still enforce masks, still enforce social distancing in Texas, and people losing their minds. Keep in mind, these are the same people talking about, you don't have the right to tell me what to do with my body. I can put on the mask or this and that nature, and all that mess. But when a restaurant exercises its rights to refuse service to anybody who doesn't wear a mask, You're trampling on my freedom. No. The same freedom that you just used to express and I just realized I was muted. Oh, how long have I been muted? Oh, I just noticed I was muted. Oh, that's nice. That's lovely. I should be paying more attention. All right, just to recap that, guys, what I was talking about. Of course, the mass issue. It is amazing how Texans aren't the only ones that become ignorant. Texans aren't just everywhere. They're in Florida and Tennessee too, because Tennessee is considering uplifting its COVID-19 restrictions, and we hope that doesn't happen. But anyway, that's just a recap of everything I said ever since I was muted. I gotta make sure that I'm unmuted next time. But anyway, I did want to get to Evanston, Illinois, because we talked about them a few podcast episodes ago, in which we talked about they were the first city in U.S. history to offer black residents reparations, just not in the way that you think. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure I'm trying to make sure I'm not muted. I'm not gonna make that same mistake twice. But yes, that's Evanston, Illinois, where they're actually doing a reparations, and I said this is the part where I looked at this. I'm like, that's kind of misleading. Because when you think reparations, I'm thinking historically every time the U.S. has paid reparations out, they've always paid via check. So when I first heard this, it was like, wait a second. It doesn't sound like reparations. It sounds like we're not going to give you, because every time I hear reparations, I'm like, who cut the check? Cut the check. The U.S. has always paid reparations in cash, And I gotta remember to actually have that up to show historically that reparations have always been paid in cash by the U.S. to someone. That also being said, when it comes to black Americans, it's like, well, we don't want to give you cash because we don't know which one of you guys were. And I said they go down this rabbit hole all the time. They go down the simple rabbit hole all the time. Well, we don't know all y'all were really descendants of slaves and who's actually considered a black African American and things of that nature. It goes down the rabbit hole. But I have to give Evanston, Illinois' legislation some credit. It is trying to move forward with giving black residents, although $25,000 in housing assistance, it's a broad statement. It is a broad statement. Does it increase more home loan? Could it possibly lead to more home ownership? Yes. But as the person in the video explained, that if she does take that on, she may not be able to afford it. It's like basically getting those, reverse mortgages to where you think it's all sweet until you miss a payment and then your house is gone. Or, taking your tax refund, getting a car when you don't have a job, and then you're good for about 1 or 2 months, later repo the car. It's just wasted money. So, I mean, I give it credit for what it is, but at the same time, it's still not enough. And I have been saying this from Jump Street, cut the check. It's not that freaking hard. As much as Congress and those that are against reparations say to be. But also, if you've noticed about the U.S. Postal Service, things might have been a little slower, your mail may have been a little delayed, or postmen may have been cutting corners. Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Fire from Congress and the White House. He's apologized for slow mail delivery last year, but defying calls to step down, even as he warned of more mail slowdowns to come. Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning. The head of the Postal Service, Louis DeJoy, made it clear that he is not going anywhere, telling lawmakers, quote, get used to me. Now, he did try to explain some of those slowdowns with the mail delivery, saying he was trying to correct these long-standing financial issues with the Postal Service, so he cut back on costs, cutting back on overtime, but that did slow down the mail delivery during the holiday season, right ahead of the election. You had Americans waiting for prescription drugs, waiting for mail-in ballots. He did push back on accusations that he was trying to undermine mail-in voting, but he did apologize for those delays, calling it unacceptable. His goal here, though, is to still cut down on costs. So the changes that he is suggesting would still slow down the mail, and that is prompting new concern, George, right before tax season and possibly another round of stimulus checks.
And Rachel, he says he's not going anywhere, but he can be replaced. It's just a bit of a complicated process.
Yeah, this is complicated. So Louis DeJoy is a Republican donor. He cannot be removed by the President of the United States, but he can be removed by the Board of Governors. And so right now, Democrats are pushing the White House to take action, and they're strategically trying to fill the vacant seats on the Board of Governors. They are the ones that could remove DeJoy, George.
Could happen by this summer. Okay, Rachel, thanks very much.
Facing a challenge on another.
Crazy, isn't it? That this person who was one of the last appointees in Trump's failed presidency, that he is now in charge of one of the largest logistics distribution networks in the U.S. And his response to his critics is, get used to me, I'm not going anywhere. Consider the fact that now he is cutting hours on access to postal services, opening annexes with those same hours, cutting delivery times from priority mail from 5 days to 3 days. A lot of people who depend on the priority mail for their shipping and businesses will be affected by this. And I've been saying this since Bernie Sanders pointed this out. They are literally starving the U.S. Postal Service to privatize it. At least the Republicans were. The Republicans were trying to literally starve the Postal Service so it can be privatized instead of investing in it. And let's be honest, it used to be that the Postal Service was a pretty good job. I mean, at one point, great benefits and opportunities, things of that nature, go across the board. But now it's barely holding on by a thread, and I think that is beyond messed up. And of course, you have, I like to call the Postmaster General Ron DeJoy Killjoy. Killjoy is pretty much solidifying his position. But they did say at the end of it all, yes, he can be removed, but by law, it has to be the Board of Governors, not the actual president. And I thought to myself, well, somebody needs to go change that rule, considering how Trump was hiring and firing people when he was president. Although at the time, the Postmaster General under the previous administration resigned, which allowed him to appoint someone new. So there's always that there too. Which again, like I said, I feel sorry for the post office. I still think it's one of the most held in regard businesses and government institutions that we have here, and that's being relegated to this. So, but also with that being said, guys, moving right along, I did talk about this story I did talk about the story last year. If I can find words, that'd be great. I did talk about the story last year where, for everybody does remember the Karen, we had a whole bunch of Karen stories. But this Karen story was really about the Karen who accused a black teen of having her iPhone. Remember her? Yeah, they're finally getting her case.
7:39 with In-Depth today and an update on a story that we first brought you yesterday.
That's right. New York City police and prosecutors are now investigating that hotel confrontation that saw a woman falsely accuse a teenager of stealing her iPhone. NBC's Kathy Part talked to that boy's father, who captured the whole thing on camera. Kathy, good morning.
Craig, good morning to you. Keon Harold, a noted jazz musician, told me he is still in shock and that the experience has been traumatic for his entire family, especially his teenage son. Harold says he is overwhelmed with response to that video, but appalled that he even had to hit record.
This morning, jazz musician Keon Harold is calling for assault and battery charges against this woman, who's now at the center of a viral confrontation.
Take the case off, that's mine. You literally get it back, please.
I tried to tell her best as I could that he doesn't have your phone.
Harold says he began recording the incident that played out at a New York City hotel where they were staying. He says the stranger wrongly accused his 14-year-old son of stealing her iPhone.
Are you kidding me? You feel like there's only one iPhone made in the world?
No, okay, then show me the.
Just a beautiful soul. Him experiencing this is super traumatic.
We see at some point she gets close to you and towards the camera, but then it cuts off. So what happens next?
She tackled my son, trying to reach in his pockets, reach in my pockets.
NBC News does not know what happened before or after the minute-long video and was not able to make contact with a woman who has not been publicly identified. Police did confirm a harassment complaint has been filed, and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office says they're thoroughly investigating the incident. Harold is now working with attorney Ben Crump, who is calling for a civil rights investigation into the hotel.
We can't have this double standard in America where young black people are guilty until proven innocent.
The Arlo Hotel says the manager on duty promptly called police regarding the woman's conduct and apologized for the inexcusable experience.
No, he's not leaving. Show me the proof.
The widely viewed footage triggering outrage on social media. New York City's Mayor Bill de Blasio tweeting, "This is racism, plain and simple."
You see two black people?
No. This case now joining other caught on camera moments, demanding accountability.
Yep, come on, you can do it. So again, that's not surprising, because I remember Karen. I call her Hotel Karen because for all those that don't remember that story, that was the woman that basically attacked the 14-year-old who, as she believed, had her iPhone, which come to find out the iPhone was in the cab of an Uber as it was returned to her. Keep in mind, it's the same woman that actually had an interview with Gayle King on I believe it was CBS This Morning. And she was just, she had on a daddy. This is the woman that was right next to her attorney, and she just looked like she just didn't care about any of the questions Gayle King had. And Gayle King was really ready to snatch her up. But again, they are looking into possible assault and battery case as charged as it should be, considering the fact that the woman had fled to California from New York after the incident. So wouldn't be surprising if they do bring up those cases. Those charges to that case, but at the same time, it does address one thing. It is racism. It is profiling, At the same time, she felt empowered that she can just go up and just tell somebody, let me see your phone. And Alan is like, as a parent, you're just sitting there the whole time like, you are trying to hurt I don't know what your intentions are, but you're leaning toward my child. I am not about to sit there and take that. So we'll follow that story as it goes along. It's just the fact of the matter is, they actually just now getting around to where they're looking into cases. Also, with the other stories that I got, guys, I did talk about universal basic income, which I sat there and said sometime last year that jobs, if they do disappear, will have a hard time coming back, especially in areas where there's a lot of people employed. And one of the things, Andrew Yang, when he was running for president, had suggested this. This was also suggested by Senator Bernie Sanders and many others, that eventually there has to be a universal basic income, just because jobs will not be as available, or in some areas not as available as they believe. And of course, a couple of cities have actually tried to do this as far as doing these economic income payments, or I like to call them just universal basic income. Well, the mayor of Oakland has decided to do the one thing after hearing one city try to experiment of giving people $500 a month in addition to whatever they're working, and saw that it had great potential. So they decided to do it again with a bigger city.
California made headlines for becoming the first city in the U.S. to successfully test the idea of guaranteed basic income. And now, Oakland, California has followed suit. Earlier this week, city officials announced that their own program is in an effort to find solutions to rising poverty and inequality. Beginning this spring, 600 low-income families will receive $500 a month for at least 18 months with no strings attached. So for some more insight on this, we are joined by Oakland's Mayor, Libby Schaaf. Thanks you so much for joining us. So, people will be familiar, maybe they won't be, but with the first time a similar program was rolled out, it was in Stockton. It was only recently that we got the results of how that program went, and it was quite successful. There were a lot of high points, including the fact that there was an increase in full-time employment amongst the individuals and families who received that money. So I'm curious about how things got rolling where you are. Were you watching the program in Stockton, waiting for the outcome? To see if it could be something that you could implement there?
Yes, absolutely. Last summer, the mayor of Stockton formed something called Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, and I was proud to be a founding member. So I pledged last summer to start a pilot in Oakland similar to Stockton's. Now, we are focused on families that have a child living there. We are focused on closing the racial wealth gap. And we're also experimenting with a geographic concentration. But we are going to be part of a large body of evidence. Mayors across the country are engaging in guaranteed income. We know that poverty is complex, but this is a simple solution. And we believe its time has come to become federal policy.
Mayor Schaaf, your program is a little different from some of those others that you're referencing that are popping up around the country, because it does focus on people of color. Give us some insight into your constituents and what their basic needs and requirements for eligibility are, and how will this program ultimately support your community?
Well, this is for families, and we are focused on families of color, people of color, because there is such a racial wealth gap. In Oakland, white incomes are 3 times that of the median black income. Nationally, the asset wealth gap is 10 times. So we want to close that racialized disparity in poverty. And honestly, every family should thrive. We saw from Stockton not only higher employment rates coming from guaranteed income, but also reduced anxiety, depression, and other impacts on wellness, things that keep people from actually getting out of poverty. We know from even the stimulus check experiences in our post-COVID world that poverty is complicated, and we don't need another government program or website. People need money. This is the best way to get people out of poverty. And we as a nation should have as our value that families should not suffer from.
And she's right. Again, records have shown that when you do universal basic income or guaranteed income, people do better as a whole. People, are able to, maybe cut down on additional jobs. Allowed, mental health has improved. Many divorce rates have actually lowered because families actually can spend time together. And even in the home, child grades among children within income-stricken households, that's also improved. So again, for them not to sit there and say, well, we're just going to give away free money. No, it's not the whole thing about giving away free money. It's to basically ensure that an individual has everything they need in order to thrive. That's the big difference. And like I said, people have done this in Stockholm. People have done this in Stockholm, as they said, and they also sat there and said that now Oakland being a bigger city, that they will go ahead and do that there. I'm personally seeing, like I said before, say what you want about Andrew Yang and others, they also had a point. To actually help everybody, you do need universal basic income. And if you really think about it, look at the stimulus checks. When people were getting the $900, $600, and $1,400, and I know, it's not enough. I mean, you might stop the bleeding. You might, stop a bleeding, but it doesn't mean that the wound is closed. Of course, if there was continuous stimulus checks. Try saying that 5 times fast. If we or stimmies was another one. If we kept on getting monthly stimmies, then you would see already off the bat that it works. So that's why I say I'm not surprised by universal basic income working. It doesn't have a failure rate. It seems that every time they've tried it, it's actually had a success rate. So again, I'm looking forward to that. And finally, guys, the last two stories I got, I did want to talk about the trial of Derek Chauvin. They have completed their jury selection, which means that Derek Chauvin, the former officer who was charged with killing George Floyd in a stop, that actual case will begin next week. Keep in mind, for all those that don't remember Derek Chauvin, he was the officer that was kneeling on the back of George Floyd's neck, which ultimately led to Mr. Floyd's demise. So it is going to be interesting. And like I said before about this case, I said this before, that because that video was everywhere, and I do mean everywhere, I sat there and said a few podcasts ago, it's going to be a little hard to find a jury that's impartial to that. Everybody across the globe has at least seen that video once. And apparently, I don't know where they found these folks, but apparently they found this jury this jury of 14 individuals. It is gonna, 15 individuals, because it's actually 12 jurors. I'm sorry, that's wrong. 12 jurors and 2 alternates. So it's 14. Sorry. So these 14 people have been selected for this trial that will begin next week. And it will have a lot of national attention on it, just because we talked about the fact of police reform and defunding the police, and that a lot of things need to be changed when it comes against law enforcement toward minorities versus anybody else. And like I said before, it's going to carry a lot of weight depending on how this case goes. But we definitely will follow that as the opening case does start next week. And finally, the last bit of news, history was made this Monday as Boston got its first not only its first black mayor, but first female black mayor, Miss Janey, who actually took the reins as acting mayor at 9:01 p.m. Monday after the former mayor had retired. So I thought that was pretty cool because, let's be honest, when you think Boston, it's like, stay for the, sure, it's racist, but apparently stay for the atmosphere, I guess. But again, it's just going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I do like to see a lot more African Americans and people of color, definitely in areas, because I've sat there and said this before, guys, when we, the way that we change society, especially with the U.S., is not always at the president's seat. Don't get me wrong, I am completely happy about President Obama. I would vote him in every time, no problem. But President Obama at the time also said something else that a lot of people kind of forgot, is that he can't do this on his own, that he needed people in the local and the state and federal levels. And that meant people that we had to get in. And it's amazing that 4 years of Trump showed us that we need to get people that we really support in these positions in order to make change happen. Stacey Abrams and many others did that with Georgia. The Senate actually got a slim majority. We actually got a female Madam Vice President. And we got good old Joe, a white man with some decency. But, yeah, we all of them can't be 5 out of 5s. We'll take what we can get. But again, I just like the fact that actually seeing that more elected officials of color are actually being sworn into office. So congratulations to her. Before we do get out of here, guys, I did want to actually talk about our feel-good story. Like I said before, How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that sometimes is good news and bad news. Sometimes it's really, really, really messed up news. And that can bring some doom and gloom. We're not trying to do that, especially with the fact that it's Wednesday and it's hump day. So we are going to basically leave you guys with a story that I did not know about. Apparently this is about a bookstore called Little Free Diverse Libraries, and the story behind it I thought was pretty cool about what this individual decided to do to actually increase literature among everybody. Check it out.
I know that we don't look the same, our skin, our eyes, our hair, our frame. But that does not dictate our worth. We both have places here on earth. And in the end, we are right here to live a life of love, not fear. To help each other when it's tough, to say together, I am enough. I'm Sarah Kamya, and I'm the founder of Little Free Diverse Libraries. One of my favorite books is I Am Enough by Grace Byers, and I love this book because so often we are told we are not enough. And this book really tells the story that you are enough, that you are capable of so much, that every person has different qualities about them, but that doesn't make them less worthy. And this book, when I read it, I literally got goosebumps everywhere. When I was growing up, I didn't feel like I was enough, and I didn't feel seen and heard and loved by everyone around me, and I felt scared to be who I was. And I think that this book just really sends the message that you are loved. I grew up in Arlington, Massachusetts, which is a predominantly white town. I have a Black father and a white mother and a younger sister. And growing up, I was oftentimes the only Black student in class, and I only surrounded myself with white people. I didn't really see myself represented in a lot of different areas, whether that was in school plays, in books, in arts. It just oftentimes felt like I was the only one. So my parents and I talked a lot about race growing up. Our conversations were oftentimes about the police or making sure that I am respectful, or making sure that when I'm at a store to not do anything that would make me look suspicious. So a lot of our conversations were ways to keep me safe and ways to protect me from the outside world. I'm a school counselor at a K-8 school in New York City, and I've actually always known I've wanted to be a school counselor since I was in about 6th grade. I remember my school counselor in middle school was a woman of color. She was just like a boss lady. I remember really looking up to her, and it was ever since that day or those moments with her that I thought, like, I could do this. I had a lot of time to just kind of wander and walk through my neighborhood in Arlington, Massachusetts. And when I did that, I passed Little Libraries. Little Free Libraries started in 2009. It's an organization that basically created these little libraries that could be posted outside of people's homes, outside of schools, in different areas in the community. People are welcomed and encouraged to take a book and leave a book. So oftentimes you'll see a book come out and a new book come in, and they allow for so many people to access books that maybe they couldn't afford, or books that they've never seen before. These little libraries are really helpful for communities because they allow for an influx of books to be circulating and passing from one person to the next. So it was important for me to start a Little Free Diverse Library in Arlington because I noticed on my walks that these libraries were just filled with the same kind of books. I thought to myself that these libraries are such a great way to get books to other people and spread the message about Black culture and Black history and just showcase Black characters in books. Black characters being superheroes, Black characters talking about their hair. I'm a lover of books. I thought if I just put one book here and either a little brown child picks one up and they get to see themselves in a book represented as a superhero or read about their hair love, then maybe that can help. And if it's a white child or a white parent reading this book, they can learn something about a culture that for so long hasn't been talked about and celebrated and brought attention to. I think that my parents gave me like $100, my sister gave me $50. I'm like, all right, awesome. $150, I'm gonna buy like 10 books, 7 books maybe, and just fill like one in each like library I pass, not thinking about how far this would really go. I hope that with these books, someone tells someone about something they've learned in it, and it just continues to get passed on, and we continue to educate ourselves and learn more about other cultures and just learn about people in general.
My name is Hugo Kamia, and I'm Sarah Kamia's dad. It really goes back her love for reading. I think Black and brown kids love reading, but they don't get represented. Sarah, even as a baby and later on as an infant, we had a routine which went like this: bath, bed, book, milk. That routine was so important before we put her to bed. In fact, when we would be tired and exhausted, we would want to skip reading. She would remind us about book. But there were not many books around, and the bookstores carried books by white authors reflecting the themes of white people. I am originally from Africa, been here for more than 30 years now. There were no books reflecting African people that I could access. Little did I know that there was a booming number of authors whose books never made it to our local bookstores. We have received so many books here since she started this project, one of which is called I'm Enough. And I've been reading that book since it arrived. I had never read it. It's the whole mantra of, yes, I can. And in some ways, this has been my story. I grew up in very humble beginnings. I know how much I have come to trust my voice. In some ways, my daughter brings that voice first and foremost to herself. And I hope in this project, she lends it to other kids like her, that she is enough and that they are enough.
Neighbor named Ella who lives right across the street from me, and once I got home because of COVID, I started to see her more. I met Ella one day, and her dad had come over and introduced himself and said, hey, I heard about your books. If you ever want help passing out the books in the neighborhood, Ella would love to help.
Yeah, what is this book? Oh, that one's a good one. It's about Black men who
we thought how great would it be for me and Ella to just go out and hand books to others. So one day I packed up a bag and headed across the street, and we handed out these books to the different community members that I had never met before, that Ella knew all their names. And so that was kind of where me and Ella's little friendship kicked off, and she's my great little helper. And we kind of handed out different books. She would pick which one she wanted to give someone. She was so thoughtful in how she was distributing these books. She wanted to make sure we didn't miss anybody's house. And it was a really fun experience to go around and see how this project has really transformed and see it through her eyes and what that means.
In class, I draw a picture.
two princesses in hijab having a picnic on the day of the reveal. A couple hours before, I was checking on the library, and she just screams from her window, like, "I'll see you at the reveal, Sarah." And it was just so cute, and she's just my number one supporter, honestly.
You go on an adventure in a story? It's pretty cool. Like, it says so many things.
My hope for all of this at the end of the day is that people are reading books and they're educating themselves about Black people, about people of color, about people who are different than them, people that they've maybe never even interacted with or thought about, and finding ways to start conversations that in time create change. And I think that this project is doing that, one book at a time. There's just so much more work to do. So I hope that when someone closes a book, they then start a conversation, and that conversation leads to a dialogue about maybe how things look in their workplace or how their kids' school looks, or things that aren't right are being talked about in ways that they maybe haven't before. And through that, they're learning to show empathy and spread more awareness and kindness and justice for Black people and people of color.
Up. All right, I think we're good. All right, so I like that story. Just like I said, I'm a big fan of reading, especially literature, whether it's books, ebooks, comic books, manga, however you cut the mustard on it. I am a big fan of that. So just seeing someone that wants to, really invest in making sure that diversity in books is being shared, and also being shared freely, because we all see those little libraries everywhere. And depending on not whether you take advantage of that or have fun with it, you really should. But above all else, never stop reading, because the greatest stories are always found in books. So that's just something that always sticks with me. But that's really all I got, guys, for this podcast. So I do thank everybody that watched, whether on Facebook or Instagram. I do apologize for Instagram. I know I have to kind of figure out how to actually make what I'm showing here on Facebook show on Instagram, because all they were able to see is my mug, and I know sometimes if I'm not saying anything that I'm ruggedly handsome, but sometimes like I said, you need to be able to see it. So again, the link at the bottom that you're currently seeing on the screen, if you copy and paste that into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree, which will actually show all my podcasts, their Facebook and YouTube groups, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, GIT, and also the Off Limits Podcast. They both have their Facebook and YouTube groups there, so definitely like, share, and subscribe. And also, share with other people, because what I'm doing, a few may like it too. We try to be like the dudes, but rather different. So if you know somebody that definitely would like this kind of stuff, definitely share it as well. I did want to talk about my travel page before I get out of here, because yes, your boy does do travel. Uncle Obi's Adventures and More is my travel page, because I decided that I wanted to take on the travel business, because I wanted to make it my point in life to do two things. One, get people the vacation of their dreams, and two, save them some money, because that is two things everybody loves. Going on the dream vacation they want, and saving money. And that's what I try to do. You tell me the destination, the date and times you want to go, and I will bust my butt to get you the best deal possible. Whether it's airfare, hotel, or rental car, or all the above, whether it's down the street, across the state, or across the pond, let me be that person that can get you to where you want to get to. Because at Uncle Obi's Adventures and More, we just don't sell adventures, we sell great memories. And I do have a $100 referral going on for that. So if you know someone that is looking to travel and you refer them to me and they book travel with me, then it's $100 in your pocket. There is no limits on that. So if you know 20 people, then it's a good payday for you. Or if you know 200 people that book travel, as long as they book travel with me, you get paid. And let me also point out my buddy who's in Facebook jail right now. But if he could talk, sorry, Vaughn. If he could talk, he would sit there and tell you that April 4th, he will be coming back with all new podcast episodes. And I personally cannot wait, because a lot of things have happened since his hiatus. So I can only imagine what he's going to talk about when he gets back. I am talking about my buddy Vaughn, Big BZ down on Facebook. And if you're not his friend, look him up, Big BZ down on Facebook. And he's friendly sometimes. He might not be now because because Zuckerberg kind of banned him in Facebook jail. But when he does return on April the 4th, he will resume his podcast. Just to give you a quick references of what his podcasts are. If you go to his video section under his friends page, you'll basically able to see them all. The VST Intercast, I like to call it a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers as he loves to show. I call him the king of the weird trailers because he finds ones that are really, really interesting, and then he finds ones that make you question our friendship. But I still love him anyway. But it's an interactive show, so definitely like and subscribe that. Like, share, and subscribe that from there. He has another show for the sake of this podcast. We're going to call it RAF. RAF is like America's Funniest Home Videos, if done by WorldStar, which means it is definitely adult. Do not bring your kids. We are not responsible for every word they may find out. But it's meant for the adults to reset their weeks. We already know working a job is hard, especially during a pandemic, and you need something to laugh, chuckle, reset your weeks the right way, and that's what RAF can do. And also another podcast I'm looking forward to that he's going to be resuming again is going to be the Rhythmless Music Podcast. You can run us over the rhythm in which him, myself, and others go over albums and grade them to a rating system. Now, it could be music that he brings up or music that he asks us to find and bring to the table. And the beauty part about this Rhythmless Music Podcast is it's not just to judge music, it's to bring music you never heard of. In order for you to expand your own musical library. I myself, because of this podcast, have actually found more music that I did like that I did not know about. It's only because Vaughn put me, and I don't really call it uncomfortable, but he kind of throws you out in the deep end and says, hey, try this and see if you like it. And that's the beauty of the Rhythmless Music Podcast, because it definitely does bring new music to your ears and more to your library. But can't wait for he starts those podcasts again. And finally, he does have a pop-up show. This pop-up show is called Bonking Around, in which Vaughn makes beats like this. Okay, and if I had to play any more, then I gotta pay Vaughn. But Vaughn does make beats. He is a beat maker. He's like Kanye West, except without the crazy, but kept the genius. But he actually makes beats on a daily basis. So if you like to just know, like to see the creation of a beat being played, or if you like the beat and want to purchase it yourself, yes, those beats are available. You just simply have to reach out to Vaughn at Big BZ down on Facebook, and he'll give you the details on how that is actually possible to purchase those beats if you are so interested. All of his shows can be found, like I said, on his Facebook page, Big BZ. He will be returning back April the 4th, and I, like I said before, just can't wait to see what the guy comes up with. As for yours truly, my podcast schedule really hasn't changed that much. Apparently, my IT Continue stories are catching traction because if you haven't read it, please go to my Facebook page, William Buchanan. And these stories, I will go ahead and say this because apparently some people believe that I'm just a great story writer, and if I was, I'm in the wrong profession. But all my IT stories are 100% completely true and meant to be hilarious, and hopefully get you through the rest of your work week. So definitely look me up, William Buchanan, on Facebook to see IT Continues, which is basically my IT storytelling side of it. Of course, every Wednesday, as you're watching now from 8:30 to 10, is the midweek edition of How the Frack We Got Here. This Friday between 8:30 to 10 o'clock will be my Get Bit podcast. Get Bit is my video games, anime, superhero television, movies, things of that nature podcast, in which we cover all things of fandom for nerds, blurs, geeks, and freaks. Only because if you are passionate about something, then you are definitely one of us. And this week is no different because I will actually, hopefully, it seems my panel over there is growing, and that's a great thing. Hopefully I'll have a lot more guys on there to where we can all talk all things Marvel, DC, comic book, and things of that nature. And if you're a part of that, and if you're with that, then you're one of us. So definitely join us on Get Bit Friday night. Also here on my Facebook page, William Buchanan. On Saturday morning between 10 a.m. to noon is the weekend edition of How the Frack We Got Here, in which we cover other stories that have happened post-Hump Day. And a little bit later that night will be the Off Limits podcast. What I usually say about Off Limits, as the name implies, we go there, and by there I mean everywhere. There's no subject that we will not cover, and trust me, as I've shown the last two weeks, we go after everybody. We are equal opportunity over here. Like I said, all my shows, including their Facebook, YouTube pages, can be found at the link at the bottom. So definitely copy and paste that in there and share it with others. You may find those that just might be just so inclined to turn around and watch me and others. And like I said before, just trying to grow the podcast nation is all we're trying to do. Before I do get out of here, guys, I do want to say thank you for everybody that watched, liked, shared, started. I won't say watch parties because watch parties are kind of go away on Facebook. Thank you everybody that was watching on Instagram that just peeked their head in and wondered why I went live. It's an experiment that I'm doing. We're trying to cover social media at all one time. I'm almost got to tweet the way I wanted to. But with that being said, guys, COVID-19 is real. Please wear a mask. Please do social distancing. We are not out of the woods yet. If a vaccination becomes available in your area, please take advantage of it. I know some people are still waiting. Some people are higher cases. Some people are more extreme cases. But honestly, guys, let's get the shot. Let's do the things that we need to do to keep the cases down, to make sure that our ICU capacity is a lot greater and not less reduced. And honestly, let's just not try to have another COVID-19 surge. If you want to get back to some sense of normal, we have to do what the rest of the countries did, and that's follow instructions, not scream America every chance we get. And also, I ran out of breath just saying that. And also, thank you, nurses, doctors, nurse aid, doctor's aid, those that work in environmental hospitals. Thank you for all that you do since you've been doing last year. You guys are the real MVPs, and also who are also the real MVPs. My essential people. I hate the word essential worker. Essential worker is such a corporate buzzword that I cannot stand. It's up there with pizza party. I cannot stand that. But essential people, I'm talking about first aid responders. I'm talking about teachers, educators, those that have to work in school in socially distanced areas. I am talking about those who work in gas stations, grocery stores, who are truck drivers, those that work in warehouses like Amazon, and those that work in logistics like United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and all of the areas. You guys are also, you guys should get a lot more than what you're getting, but thank you for all that you do, just because you guys really do work to keep the lights on for the rest of us who are able to work at home, which I guess in my case that's going to change, but that's for another podcast. But with that being said, guys, like I said before, thank you again for all who watch. If you're watching this in the playback, please comment if it's live, and again, thank you all those that are watching on Instagram. I certainly appreciate that. But at the end of all this, How the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. We are not trying to change minds. We're not trying to persuade people. We are simply giving you all the facts to allow you to make up your own mind. Because we do a lot better as a society when we're informed. When we're uninformed, we get people like Trump. When we're informed, we get our first black Madam Vice President. I still love saying that. But aside from that, guys, thank you all for watching. It's been fun. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.